Well, we're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact those?
I think February 1st.
Are you still considering a universal tariff, Mr. President, on all countries?
I may, yeah, but we're not ready for that yet. We may wrap it, because essentially all countries take advantage of the U.S.
All right, joining us now to talk about this. Very interesting. He said February 1st, which I pretty much think that's new information from President Trump. Anyway, John Carney, Breitbart finance editor, co-author of the daily Breitbart Business Digest, and Dan Clifton, head of policy research at Strategas. He is the best Washington watcher on Wall Street, or in Washington for that matter. Gentlemen, welcome. Start with you, John Carney. You heard him, February 1st, and I think particularly Mexico, if President Sheinbaum, I think that's her name, if she thinks that's an idle threat, she'd better think again. That'd be my guess.
I think that's what Donald Trump is responding to, that Mexico is not treating this seriously. Neither is Canada. They are saying that they think they are more or less communicating that Donald Trump is bluffing. They don't think he will come forward with the tariffs. So therefore, they don't have to change their own policies. He's not even asking for that much. He's really asking for a return to the status quo ante, to what existed the last time he was president. They should give that. If they want to test Donald Trump on it, I think they are going to find out that Donald Trump is not bluffing, that the tariffs will come.
Indeed. Dan Clifton, how do you read this story?
Well, I have a little bit of a different variation on it. As you remember, in November, the president said that he would put those tariffs on Mexico on day one. That did not obviously happen yesterday. And I think what the president's doing is keeping his foot on their throat to make sure that they are enforcing the Remain in Mexico policy when it comes into effect. If you read these immigration executive orders, these are sweeping immigration changes that the president is putting forward that will finally get our borders secure. But there has to be cooperation from Mexico on the other side to do that. And he just does not want to make sure that there's caravans coming through. He wants to make sure that they're going to have beds there. And I'll tell you this, Canada's putting up significant dollars in their budget on infrastructure. But I think more broadly, the president wants to see more progress on getting access to the Arctic, where Russia and China are starting to be able to make inroads. And Canada has a very good road to that. I think that explains what's going on in Greenland. So this is a president who's in a unique position because he's already been here before. And he knows where the levers are, and he's laying those levers down to make sure all the policies work. I think that's really important change.
So, John, just to follow up on this, Remain in Mexico back in the first term, which was very successful. Was very successful in large part because AMLO, President Obrador, gave us 25,000 troops on the border. It was a big help, okay?
Right.
Enormous help. And those numbers were knocked down right away. I have heard nothing similar to that from the current president, I believe her name is Sheinbaum. And I think that Trump he's going to send troops to the border. I mean, he said American troops going to the border. Yeah. She's not going to, John? I mean, I think she's making an enormous mistake here because he'll slap a 25% tariffs on autos or manufacturers. They totally rely on us for the entire Mexican economy. What you make of it?
No, absolutely. I can do a little reporting and breaking news right here is that I can say that Donald Trump has actually had people reach out to Mexico and say, we're not asking for very much. We want you to send the same troops that were there before back to the border, enforce the policy that you agreed to enforce when I was president before. And he has basically received radio silence in response. So Donald Trump's message is, we're going to impose the tariffs. If you are not going to respond, we're going to impose the tariffs. And this is a broader message because it's not just to Mexico and Canada. It's the rest of the world is waiting to see how this gets resolved. If Donald Trump folds here without getting Canada and Mexico to go along with his demands, the rest of the world will say, we also don't have to do what Donald Trump says.
You know, Dan, I'm just going to guess that if he goes ahead and imposes a 25% tariff, let's say on autos or manufacturers, and we know that China's been coming through Mexico in order to avoid the USMCA domestic content, Mexico's economy is going to get hurt. They're going to get killed. I mean, we're their biggest market. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're not going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt.
Absolutely. Well, tariffs hurt everybody, but it will hurt them much more than it will hurt us. And this will be a significant shot across the bow. But when you read that trade executive order yesterday, it's an excellent document. It basically says, look, we haven't made any decisions yet, but everything is on the table. We're going to look at every single trade issue there. USMCA, why is China not committed on its purchases? Who's manipulating their currency? Whose trade balance is out? And then we want the agencies to report back in April, right around the time we'll be doing the TCJA extension, and we will come up with a plan. And I think the president kind of indicated that yesterday. We're just not ready on the universal tariff. So this is a great team. They're trying to figure out how to structure it. They're not going to put the U.S. in recession over tariffs. They're not going to heat up inflation because that's what he got elected on. They're figuring out how to turn that Rubik's Cube to get the right policy mix. But if Mexico does not comply and there's chaos at the border as the border shuts down, Mexico will pay a very high price for that. My sense is they will wind up cooperating, and this will be posturing ahead of the USMCA renegotiations in 2026.
Let me just skip back.
Issue, Larry, as you know, is the China investment in Mexico to avoid U.S.
Yes, I think that's one of the key things on Trump's mind, and it is an issue. John, 20 seconds or less. He didn't mention tax cuts in the inaugural speech. He didn't mention tax cuts. He didn't mention affordability. I don't think he's given up on tax cuts, but I was surprised. Were you surprised he didn't?
I was surprised.
He wasn't growthier?
Yes, I was surprised that he wasn't growthier. I think he's trying not to. I think he put a lot of pressure on the Senate on this issue, and I think he didn't want to be seen as hammering them.
Yes.
Look, it's in the hands of the lawmakers now. They have to follow through with tax cuts. I think this was sort of an olive branch to Thune and the Senate.
I want him to hammer the senators, actually. That's just my own view. John Carney and Dan Clifton.